And welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. We are Indy investors talking Indy investing. This is a podcast where we just like to talk about helping educate people about real estate investing here in Indianapolis. That's our goal. Please let us know if we can do anything to help you. That's how we come up with these topics for the show. My name is Brian. This is Randy. I got joining me here today, and we are excited to discuss about just outside the loop, what's going on around Indy outside of that. It's going to be a great lead into our previous episode. So with that, let's get on with the show. And welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. We are super excited to talk about this topic today because this has been a hot topic. I feel like a lot of people have been asking more questions about it. I've had property managers reaching out to me about like, hey, where are your properties outside the loop? What's going on? My investors need this. I know this is going to be a great lead into because Randy just did an interview with Gloria Gear on the episode right before this. Awesome episode. I love Gloria. She does a great job of explaining everything, kind of breaking down just basically just Indy, and she likes to describe it like a clock. We're going to do the exact same thing today, only we're going to do outside the loop. So we're just going to start here in Carmel. That's where our office is. So we're going to start with Carmel. We're just going to basically just go around Indianapolis outside the loop, talking about all the different neighborhoods, cities, counties, all that type of stuff. So Randy, before we dig into this, man, how are you doing and how excited are you to talk about the cities outside of the loop of Indianapolis?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Brian. It's fall here in Indiana now. It's my favorite season, so the weather's breaking. It's chilly out. It's my time of year. But yeah, the burbs are what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
That's where all the craziness is going on right now, and we'll talk about kind of each area, like you said. But yeah, I think it's going to be good for people to kind of know kind of what's going on in each side around the loop. And what kind of, prices we're talking about, what's going on, things like that. So yeah, it's going to be a good show.
So awesome. And I would just say with this, we get these ideas for topics and stuff like that, just based off of what people are saying, what we hear people talking about, what people are asking us questions about. And it's funny how things just go in waves. So I'm just going to put a little disclaimer in here. This isn't like a legal disclaimer or anything like that. I just say, make sure you understand what you want to do, what you're investing in, and stay true to who you are. So when a lot of people come to us and basically like, hey, we want to invest outside the loop because that's what we've heard people talking about. Or, last year this time I was like, hey, I want everything on the east side. Just give me everything on the east side because that's what everybody wanted. So make sure you know what you want to do, what fits for your strategy, what fits for your money level, all that kind of stuff. So with that, let's kind of just get talking. So our office is in Carmel, so we're just going to start there. So that's like 12 o'clock. When you think about Indy or think about that clock, 12 o'clock, we basically have Carmel right outside the loop, right north of Indianapolis. So with Carmel, basically, if you can find a house that you can afford, buy it. That's my investment tip for Carmel. You have a lot of people that want to live in Carmel. If you're going to do a flip, you can definitely do that in Carmel. If you want to rent a property, you can do that in Carmel as well, because people want to move into Carmel. It's one of the best school districts known for one of the best school districts in the state around Indianapolis, things like that. So a lot of people are wanting to move to Carmel for that, and just to create neighborhood, great downtown, stuff like that. So Randy, you have any tips, any thoughts on just like Carmel and what it is for people and what investors can do with it?
Yeah, I think what's really cool about Carmel, what I've always liked, is it's literally right outside the loop. So typically when you see kind of cities like that or towns like that, maybe I'd picture at least like 20 minutes outside of Indianapolis, but no, it's that next town just north of Indy. So right when you cross 96th Street, which is basically the top of the loop, you're in Carmel, and it's a large city. Like you said, it's got great schools, one of the biggest schools in the states, and it's constantly rivals, Fishers is like the best place to live in America, right? That's what they're always on this top 5 list.
When they're talking about affordability, the parks, and just family value, like all that type of stuff, like that's Carmel and Fishers are up there. And there's gonna be the first two kind of neighborhoods we talk about and stuff, and things. And you talk about the population, the size. Like Carmel is the 5th biggest city in Indiana. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that. They just think of it as just a typical suburb type thing, but it's a city too. There's a lot of people that live in Carmel. It's a big area. So
yeah, it's always attractive to anyone looking to live in any suburb, just because the proximity to downtown Indianapolis and everything else in Indy, really. But then also it has its own downtown that's really been booming over the years. So if anyone's familiar with the Monon Trail, it goes all the way from southern Indianapolis all the way up past Westfield now, which is crazy, but it goes north and south. And Carmel has done a really good job of developing along it, not just neighborhoods, but if you go, if you take it through downtown Carmel, there's restaurants on it now, there's apartments, there's townhomes, there's tons of things to do now, and that kind of has fed within Carmel on different streets, and they're making like in the arts and design district, more breweries, more restaurants. It's just they're really encouraging outdoor living as much as you can. I know in the winter you can't do much here, but when it's warm, you can definitely find a patio in Carmel or trails or anything else to do outside. So overall, they're doing a good job of taking their really dense population and making it enjoyable for everyone as much as they can.
So yeah, that's really good points. Let's just go kind of north of that, of like what's expanded, like just like I feel like so Westfield is just north of Carmel, and I feel like they blend together now. Like actually, with the part where I live is like if you drive on the street,
I don't know.
right
Yeah, I don't know if you live in Carmel or Westfield.
Yeah, it is one of those things. Actually, so it's Carmel, Westfield, and then like if I actually just go like one block to the west of myself, then I'm in Zionsville. So I'm like kind of in that bizarro corner. But if you drive down like 146, like basically if you look to the right, you see Carmel signs. If you look to the left, there's Westfield signs. So, and Westfield is just completely building out, just a ton of just new subdivisions, new places, new restaurants up on 32nd or State Route 32. There's just a ton of stuff going up there. Things like that. There's a new putt-putt course. They're putting some breweries in. And then it revolves around Grand Park. So Grand Park is just where everybody that plays any kind of sports, whether you are whatever age you are, you probably have been to Grand Park in Indianapolis to play some kind of sport, whether it's, softball, football, baseball, any of those things, basketball. It's where the Colts have their training camp, other than this year because 2020 is weird. But there's just a lot of things going on up around Grand Park. And then Westfield's really taking that in and expanding around it and stuff. So they're doing really cool things. So I know, Randy, you just moved out of Westfield and stuff like that because you wanted the small town feel. You're like, oh man, this is getting big. This is, things, but there's a lot of really good things going in there. So really it's a lot like Carmel, very similar to that. Good schools and everything like that. It's a little bit more affordable is how I kind of explain it. So, price points. Yeah. For now. Yeah. So, and then kind of coming off of there, just keep going east and then you run into Noblesville. So, Noblesville is kind of, it has a little bit more of a downtown than Westfield does. Westfield's just kind of expanding all over the place. Noblesville has a downtown, good place to go walk around and things, but it's the same thing too. They're just subdivisions, neighborhoods, everything just popping up all around there. That's going to be the theme for like basically Carmel, Westfield, Noblesville, Fishers, just all that stuff around there, even into down into Pendleton to Fortville, all that stuff. It's blowing up. There's subdivisions going up everywhere and stuff. So Randy, when you're thinking about that kind of just Westfield, Noblesville, and then as you kind of get into Fishers and stuff like that, like what are your thoughts? What are some of the things that investors need to think about and consider as they're looking to invest in those areas?
As an investor standpoint, first thing you always think of is, how much is it going to cost me to get into these areas, and kind of pick and choose between like those four. I think Hamilton County is 4 core towns of Fishers, Noblesville, Westfield, and Carmel. And there's some smaller ones that surround it, but those are the 4 that everyone's going to be interested in for an investment because they do have the most appreciation, the most development, and more things going on, which leads to better tenants, et cetera. So first thing, I have my notes here. The average price for homes in Hamilton County is $394. Carmel alone is probably like $425, but Hamilton County as a whole is $394. Out of those 4, I personally would look to Noblesville as an investment, just because it's going to have a lower price to entry. And you could still find some good properties in Noblesville under 200,000. Yeah. Plenty, actually.
Yeah. We've actually just sold 5 in the last couple months. So yeah.
I know in Westfield, there's probably nothing on the market under 200,000. And if it is, it's a junker. Carmel, you don't see those prices unless you're buying a 1-bedroom townhome. And Fishers is kind of along the same way. So Noblesville is where I would target first. And then the good thing about investing in any of those towns is everything. There's so much there now. So there's a lot of kind of like the local chains, not nationwide chains, but local chains around Indy, like Sun King, for example. They've got multiple locations around Indianapolis now, so you don't have to go downtown anymore to enjoy all the local foods, local breweries, things like that. They're now coming up to the north side, and that's just it. It's more attractive to people that are kind of like the younger age, because up here in Hamilton County, it's always been kind of known as like, oh, it's the family area. People in their 30s plus. Well, now anyone graduating college or in their 20s that are looking for a job, they could find a place to live here in Hamilton County and still enjoy the same stuff that you could downtown that usually attracts the younger crowd.
So then also Noblesville feeds right into like kind of the south part of Morse Reservoir is Noblesville, and then the north part is Cicero. So some really good just areas and neighborhoods up around there. So a lot of things developing around kind of Morse Reservoir and same like that. We'll talk about the same thing. We get the guys. There's just a lot of opportunities around there. A lot of people that want to live around there because the water. There's not much opportunity to live around water in Indiana. So when you really talking about the three, you have so you have Eagle Creek, the reservoir over there. You have Morse Reservoir, and then you have Geist. Those are like the three big water places. So finding any areas around there is always tricky and stuff like that. But people gravitate to those areas. There's a lot of stuff going on around there, so something to consider as well.
And the one thing I wanted to point out, because Westfield kind of blew up after they redid 31, or I'm sorry, Keystone and 31, I guess, both of them, which made it easier for people to get to Indy and to Westfield. So same thing's happening right now along 37. Yep. So Fishers and Noblesville, those are connected by State Road 37. And that pretty much anyone who lives in those areas and works in Indianapolis, that they take that road. And for the past 10 years, it's been a nightmare for rush hour traffic to get there. And that's kind of been like the big thing of, hey, I don't want to live that far north if I want to do stuff in Indy because the traffic is just horrible. Or they're redoing 37 to make it, what do you call that? For people who aren't familiar with this area, Brian, like
they make it quicker. So then put some roundabouts.
There's no stoplights. There's roundabouts everywhere. And so you can get from Noblesville all the way through Fishers to 465. I think when they're done, maybe 15-minute drive.
Yeah.
So it's nonstop.
So then you also look at like little areas out there. So like, for example, Cicero is a lot of people are moving to Cicero and stuff because it's just straight up, if you take Keystone and 31, they eventually meet and they go up into Cicero. There's a lot of things going up on there. Sheridan's kind of blowing up just north of Carmel and stuff as well. So you look at the other side where 37 continues up, like Strawtown. Is that going to be an area that's going to kind of blow up, and Lapel and things like that up around in there. So that's getting up there kind of far, but you kind of see some developments kind of heading that way and stuff like that. So let's bring it back down a little bit closer though. Let's talk about Fishers, and we'll kind of move into like the Castleton area and things like that. So talking about Fishers. Fishers, I think is just like, I don't know the boundaries of Fishers anymore. I feel like it's just like completely just blown up and grown so much over the last year, especially the last 6 years. So I moved to Indy 6 years ago, and like just what Fishers was then to what Fishers is now is crazy. And like you said, it's rivaling Carmel in a lot of the nationwide surveys on like best places to live, and when it comes to park and things to do and family fun and stuff like that, and affordability. So prices are getting up there, but you can still get affordable places in Fishers and stuff. But yeah, the size of it is pretty crazy.
Yeah. One thing to point out there's 2 high schools, and they're 2 very large high schools. So that kind of puts in perspective how large Fishers is. It always blows my mind how big it is every time I kind of drive around. And then you think about, okay, there's 2 high schools, and I don't know the enrollment of the schools, but they're probably at least, what would you say, at least 2,500 to 3,000 each?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So I don't know for sure, but
for Indiana,
pretty big,
for Indiana, that's big, man. So, lots of stuff going on. Fishers is kind of, the way I kind of look at it is Fishers is separated by, I always say Allisonville Road. You go on one side, or 37. I'd say 37 is probably a better divider.
Or 69 now. So it's just,
you kind of, you'll see like that main vein going through Fishers. The west side of that is typically less expensive. And then the east side of that's where all the developments going on, as far as restaurants and more townhomes, apartments. So things are getting a little pricey out there. And then if you go all the way west or east to Oleo Road, kind of by Hamilton Town Center, that's where the newest developments are for as far as residential goes. So you'd probably be paying more price there. But there are still little pockets in Fishers where it makes sense to pick up an investment, because you have maybe these vinyl villages that were built between 2000 and 2006, where the last bubble happened and there's a lot of foreclosures, so those values dropped pretty significantly, but then other investors came in and started making them rental. So there's like little rental communities around Fishers. You just have to find them.
Yeah, definitely. So, and then even coming closer to the loop, you have the Castleton area, which, is a great area. There's a lot of just, businesses and places to eat and, malls, things like that around there and stuff like that. So I do think as people are moving out into Fishers and things like that, there actually opens up some opportunity kind of around the Castleton area where you can pick up some rentals and things like that. It's going to be tough to get in. It's going to be competitive. You're going to be able to you're going to probably pick them up more on the retail market than you are from, investors like us or anything, just because it is pretty competitive in there and things, but still really good area and stuff. And then moving just to the east of that. So we have basically the Geist area, which is kind of Fishers, kind of Fortville. You have some addresses around there as much, but we're talking about the Geist, a lot of that kind of factors into a lot of Fishers address. So let's kind of just anything around there, I think really just blowing up around there of like, if you can find anything, you look at a lot of families. So really, we've done 2 this last year, but we picked up straight to like, hey, we're probably not going to be able to sell these to an investor. They're probably more of, we're just going to put some work into them, some work, and just go ahead and put them on the retail market and flip. So there's some quick flip opportunities there. If you come across a property, I think are pretty good. But Randy, other than that, around Geist, is there anything that an investor should be looking out for around there?
No, I think like you said, Fortville, McCordsville, Geist, all those, like everything's getting flooded from Fishers. Everything's just flowing into there. I think if anyone could find a quick flip, a small home to flip there, I mean, that'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah. So I think kind of on that, right around that area, you think you get quick flips and stuff like that, but then you do kind of moving kind of southeast of there or south of there when you have like the Fortville and the McCordsville and things like that. Now you kind of run into where a lot of new developments are going in. That's really, really, the price points are really good for people that are moving in. So I got a couple of buddies that do work for development companies around Indy, and that's where they're focused right now. That's where they're all building and stuff like that. So a lot of affordability in there and like that. I always wonder if this is actually a good price point to where an investor can just straight up buy a new build and you just start renting it out right then and there. Kind of thing, because the value is going to come up. A lot of them are going to like in phase 1 and phase 2s, and their value is going to come when they start building the phase 3 and things. I think it's going to come. So I think there's some really good opportunity around there. And it's just continuing expanding. And this is straight out and then you come back a little bit closer to the loop, and you have just the Fort Harrison area. So really cool area, good golf course, good place to kind of go and hike and stuff. Like, the state park right here, right outside the loop in the city, which is nice. But still, I feel like when you start driving around that Fort Harrison area, you just notice all these developments and stuff like that. And you're like, what is this? It's like kind of Indy address and stuff. And you're like, oh man, this is crazy that these developments out there, they're really nice homes and things like that. Same thing of like, man, I feel like an investor could literally pick up like a new build and start renting it out there for a good price. If they're in that, if they have the capability or the financing behind it to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said.
So, all right, let's go a little bit south of there. Then we have the Lawrence area. And we've talked about Lawrence on all the shows. I know even Sterling and Dave and I have talked about it and stuff like that. So we won't really focus on Lawrence a lot, other than if you're going to invest in Lawrence, the one trick to that is make sure it is Lawrence schools. So I say there are areas around there. There's areas, kind of to the east and the south, and kind of even the west as well. Like people say, oh, you might say it's Lawrence. Well, is it Lawrence schools? That's the big thing, and that's the trick you have to look out for and stuff. So just be careful with that. But we've kind of talked about Lawrence, and everybody loves the Lawrence area. It's a great place to pick up some rentals and stuff there. I know there's a lot of investors that listen to this show that have rentals out there. So pretty solid. Mm-hmm. So Randy, let's kind of talk about that area in between Lawrence and 70 and stuff like that, of kind of what we see kind of going on there of, people always consider this like, oh man, this is a really rough area. This is super tough to invest in, things like that. I know some people that are successful over there, but it's just getting at the right price point. So you can't pay Lawrence prices for it. But being able to get in there, and then being able to kind of this is where I consider kind of a street by street area as well, of know exactly where you're investing. know what's going on. Make sure your property manager is comfortable, has rentals over there, manages properties over there as well already, that
Hmm.
type of thing. So anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that little section, like you said, from Lawrence and then in between 70, it's tricky because from someone that's not local, you think, oh, okay, I'm outside 465. Everyone that said, hey, if you're outside the loop, you're probably safe as far as whatever it goes, like crime or whatever it may be. But that little section right there does get a little tricky. You have Post Road, 38th, 42nd and Post, which everyone's probably heard of at one point in time while talking about investing in Indy. It's pretty rough around there, but a couple streets over on all the neighborhoods along German Church Road are. It's kind of like in my opinion, the barrier. It's like, okay, once you get to German Church, you can breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
You can focus more on the house than the area because you're probably going to be in a better area. But just two roads over on the map, that Post Road, things around there could get pretty sketchy. So that's pretty much the only area outside the loop where that kind of happens. Everywhere else, you're probably, if you're outside the loop, you're probably good.
Yeah, I think so. There will be some conflicting things on that. Maybe if you get to like the south, southwest side, or some of the west
Yeah.
side stuff. But I've never been worried about that or anything like that. So if you get it for the right price point, you're going to generally be okay.
Yeah.
So this is the area that always pops up, and people are like, oh man, what's going on here and stuff. So all right, let's come south of 70 then. So we're really kind of moving into so the Warren Township. We got kind of even going out through there. You got Cumberland. And on out in the green field. And we can even just southwest of that is even New Palestine and stuff. But really in those areas, those are great areas, I think, where you can pick up kind of a cookie cutter, a good rental property out there. I also know there's some families and stuff that are moving out there. So you can probably do some quick flips. When we're talking about Greenfield, you actually do kind of some bigger flips and stuff. I know. So a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of action happening out in Greenfield right now, actually, of just, people are buying these houses and doing some pretty big flips out there. When I come back a little close to the loop, though, when I'm thinking about that Cumberland, that New Pal, I'm kind of thinking of like just kind of those basic rental properties that I'm going to pick up and do kind of just a fix and rent is really what I'm looking to do there with some of those properties. But you can get anywhere from your typical 3-1 ranch, but you can also get kind of the cookie cutter that's more of like 3-2 or 4-2.5 and stuff. There's some bigger homes out there, but you kind of do that all throughout there.
Yeah. Greenfield has been really hot lately. It's what did you say, the past year? It's kind of blown up for people to go in and flip. I used to think of it as just a strictly rental market. Then we did a few deals there, and I was like, wow, Greenfield's it's pretty booming. And they're good ARVs there. You can get above 200. I never thought about it before. I just had to go there and take a look at them.
Yeah. I drove through there a couple weeks ago, and there's like, they're redoing the whole like downtown area and stuff like that. So they're doing some renovation stuff, which is pretty cool. But then there's also, even talking to the people that are flipping there that we sold the houses to, man, they're like competitive about it. Like, oh man, don't, like, they're like dropping in, like, don't sell to this person because I'm competing against, like, no, I'm not going to sell it to whoever, gives me the offer and stuff. But it's just kind of funny to see like kind of the competitiveness that you kind of have, that I saw from like, the Near East Side, earlier this year is kind of, it's extending out to some of these areas and stuff, which I think is pretty cool going on. We kind of talked about, when we were talking about McCordsville earlier. So I know a ton of people that have like flip properties over there, up around there in north, like we just talked about, but it's been hard to get into those areas and stuff like that because the investors kind of jumped on it before, or a lot of people or developers and, the kind of the big flippers jumped on it before some of the smaller investors could and stuff. I think Greenfield's the opposite, where kind of the smaller investors have started to do stuff there a little bit more than the bigger outfits and stuff. It's kind of cool around there. So let's keep it going then around the loop then. So if we kind of come down kind of that area of, Franklin Township, just around like 74, things like that done around there. It's kind of the same thing, what we just kind of said, just south of 70, I'm thinking of houses that I can just pick up and I'm going to fix and rent. That's what I'm going to do there. That's what I think of. I think if you go a little bit further south, then you can get into like, oh, I can fix this up to sell it to a family, sell it on the retail market. There's still some of that stuff going up a little bit north, closer to the loop, but that's when I think of that area, that's what I think of. I think of a fix and rent, or just putting a family in there and that kind of like that, that ranch or cookie cutter type style house.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've seen on our end. Coming across deals, small cookie cutters out there in Franklin Township. Pick them up, rent them out. You'll get some solid renters there. But that whole area between 65 and 74, that's pretty much all you're getting.
Yeah. That's
Nothing.
it.
I mean, there's not much going on there except
Yeah.
for you just have houses.
Yeah. Yeah. So then let's kind of move it around. So we're now like getting close to that, like kind of 6 o'clock down on the bottom side there. So we have like Greenwood, Southport, Homecroft, those areas, things like that. So Randy, what do you think about those areas? What can investors think about those areas? What can they do there?
Yeah. So Greenwood, they're so everyone can see on the map. It's directly south, but they're trying to be like how like what things are going on in Carmel. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Greenwood. It's a very large town. But yeah, so they're getting the south end flow of like the local chains. There's other people open up new restaurants and things to do down there. Plus, it's a long 31, so that's a main road in the whole state. And they've did some construction down there to kind of make that flow better, even on 65 as well. I feel like I think that area's been under construction for the past 5 years, which is kind of annoying. But when it's all said and done, it's gonna improve commute from Greenwood up to downtown and around, and then just going down. I think some good pockets to look at if you're not too concerned about being really close to Indy. The Franklin area and Whiteland, there are some really good deals down there where you can get in for real cheap. Even like a 3-2 cookie cutter, you could probably get for under $100,000. Maybe not do so much to it, and be pretty darn close to hitting your 1% rule, which is what everyone kind of looks for. And that's hard to do outside the loop. But that's definitely some areas where you could do that. So if no one's too concerned about proximity to Indianapolis, because those are probably the furthest ones away that I usually recommend. But I do it because it's a good area for any type of investment. You can flip there, you can get rentals, and there's a college in Franklin. So it's just overall, it's just a nice, good town that people still live in, and they still commute to Indy. But I definitely put it on someone's radar.
Yeah, they're even bringing the roundabouts down there. So
If you're getting roundabouts, you're getting serious.
So it's kind of funny of like even just look at Randy, like the way that we've analyzed that Franklin area over the last the 2 years of 2 years ago. I think you and I had that conversation of like, can we do anything down there? Like, is it worth it? It's now it's kind of like straight up of just like, oh yeah, we'll buy whatever we can find because we're just put it right on the retail market and stuff. I mean, that's a possibility down there. So I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to for any investor to really they got a solid rental market down there, but you can do some quick flips and stuff down there as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Randy, let's do this. So we are now about at 6 o'clock. So we've talked everything from 12 o'clock down to 6 o'clock. If you're thinking about the clock on the outside of the loop of Indianapolis, kind of giving a little overview of the areas and things like that. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or, hey, you guys talked about this, or can you go a little bit more in depth about this, or hey, I have a property here. What do you think? Any of that stuff. Like, we'd love to help you out in any way. We're going to come back with a second episode right after this of basically take it from 6 o'clock back up to 12 o'clock. So we're going to kind of do the other side of Indianapolis with that. And Randy, before we get out of here, so if you think about just from Carmel all the way down to Greenwood, any last thoughts or any last overview or any last tips that we have for investors out there, man?
Yeah, I would say just any of those areas we talked about, keep an open mind, keep them on your radar. They're going to be tougher to find the deal that's going to fit your model. But if you do, it's definitely going to be worth it. If you make the numbers work, and you'll have a solid investment either way. If it's going to be a flip or a rental, I think it'll pay off in the long run.
So awesome. And with that, we'll get out of here with this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. We'll take care of the other part of the loop. Take care.